Hi, I'm Christopher.
I'm Theresa.
Today we're going to be talking about tools. A lot of you have tools and you're going to be doing some projects together.
But there might be some of you that don't have experience with tools. Both of us grew up using tools, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be the person that he shows how to use the tools too, so I can ask the important questions that you might have too about how these tools work.
Yeah, so there will be a little bit of practical demonstration. There will mostly be talk about form and function and when and where to use tools. And if you guys have questions, be sure to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we get more videos coming out.
Yes.
So we're going to start here, left to right. We're going to go across the table. Very well. All right. So first tool, the hammer. And I've got an assortment of hammers here. This one here is a framing hammer. It's actually quite robust. For general everyday use, it's probably overkill. There's a gradient of hammer sizes for every use in the home. One cool feature about a framing hammer is they actually have a little slot in the top, and there's actually a magnet in there, and you put your nail in there and you can do one swing, set the nail, and then pound it in, so that framers, when they're building a house, can do 2, maybe 3 swings and sink a nail to put a 2x4 together. It makes it very fast.
Yeah.
This is a very heavy hammer, and it...
So when you're swinging a hammer,
when you're swinging a hammer, you want to hold on as low as possible. I mean, obviously, you want to have a comfortable grip. So, bottom of the hammer, it's flared to hold your hand, and this is meant to be swung one-handed. If you have to, 2 hands choke up, but stay low. Think baseball bat. You want to have a nice, good grip on it. Don't clench it to death. That's going to make your hands hurt. And when you're hammering, your focus is with your eye. You're looking at where your strike goes, not the head of the hammer.
Okay.
Okay.
I was stepping back in case you were demonstrating a swing.
Yep.
All right.
This is a dead blow hammer. It looks big and impressive, but it is soft and rubbery. It is meant for tapping things back into place.
I use this a lot when we were setting our click-clack floor.
Yeah, it works very well for that.
Yeah.
It's great for putting hubcaps on. Anything you don't want to damage but need some force behind it is where you would use that. It's a rubber mallet or a dead blow hammer. That's what it's called.
Sounds more intense as a dead blow.
Yeah. This is basically a tack hammer. Not an attack hammer, a tack hammer. It's meant for driving small finishing nails, tacks, little fasteners. You're not going to build a house with this. This is meant to hang picture frames and upholstery chairs, stuff like that. Same thing, get a good grip on it. You're holding it low at the base of the handle, not up at the top. If you're holding it at the top trying to drive a nail, you don't have any force, and it's going to take you a very long time and be very frustrating. And once again, eye focus on the head of whatever nail you're driving, and when you swing, the hammer will go there if you're looking at it. Along with putting things together, you sometimes need to take things apart, and hammers are very good at that. Sometimes you need a little bit more leverage. And the claw portion of the hammer, as these are specifically claw hammers, are meant to go over a fastener, a nail, and grip the head, and then you can rock it back and lever that out. So you get that in there and you just pry and it comes out. Sometimes you need what's called a Wunderbar or a pry bar. And these are great. They have a variety of surfaces for prying. If you need a lot of leverage, if it's really stuck, you can use this end. It's very short here, but it's got a huge lever and it can really get in there and pull things out. Sometimes if you need even more leverage, if you have a large fastener, you can set a board next to it, and then you get this in there, and now you've got that extra height. You can get a whole bunch more leverage. It's a great way to get rid of stuck nails. This is also my go-to tool for if you're taking up carpet and you've got tack strips. I can clear a room in about, would you say, about half hour, 45 minutes for the standard room with one of these. They're fantastic. There's a bit of a trick to it for hardwood flooring, or not the flooring itself, sorry, the tack strips. That's the little wood strips that have a little sharp pointy tacks in them, and that's what holds the carpet down. It grips the carpet. There's a nail, I don't know, every 16, 18 inches that holds that to the floor.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
If you run this up right next to the nail on the tack strip, and then just give it a pop with your hand, the heel of your hand, and then push down, not hard enough to damage your flooring. You just pop and push. It will pop that nail out every time. You just go pop, click, pop, click, and that tack strip will come up lickety split. It will come up and you'll be able to just move all the way around the room. This little pry bar is probably one of my favorites. It's actually a window tool. It's meant for working on double hung windows when you need to take them apart for reglazing.
Okay.
But it is one of my most versatile tools. I use it for everything. It's got a little tiny groove there. The larger pry bar has one too. It's kind of teardrop shaped. That's for a low slung nail that you can't quite get under. You can slide it in there and pop it up that way. It's great for getting finishing nails out or the nails that are in the little trim applied to your window. So when you take a double hung window, not to get into the weeds here, but there's trim called stop that holds the window sashes in, and this is made for getting in there and popping that free. But it's a fantastic little tool. It was a couple of bucks. This one I think came from Home Depot. They have a whole section where they have window tools and glazing, and you'll find this there. They're fantastic.
All right, what's next?
All right, let's move on to measurement devices. Since along with a lot of construction, you need to learn how to measure and calibrate things in some fashion or another. So obviously we've got a tape measure. Everybody's seen one of these. They're pretty straightforward. A couple of things I like about the different sizes of tape measures. The big ones, obviously that's a 25 footer. They have them up to 35 or more. That's a honking big tape measure to wear around on your hip all day long. You clip into your jeans. I've actually worn out pants by clipping those big monster things on there. They tear your pockets and stuff. They're frustrating. I've actually gotten to really enjoy using the 16-foot tape measures. They're small, they're light, they're versatile, and generally you're probably not going to need more than 8 feet for most small projects. So the 12 or 16 foot's the way to go for most projects. If you're doing a big layout on something and you need 25 feet, then by all means get one or at least have one available. Obviously get the clip there, pull it out. This thing here is the lock that holds it in place. And one other little feature, so that little slot in there is meant to be hooked on a nail. So you can drive in a nail or a screw and hook that on there, and it will let you pivot, it'll let you pull out, and it just holds on to it. So you can move around and keep tension on it. It will stay there wherever you put it. So it's a great way to...
Okay, I have to ask you a question because
Yeah.
sometimes people say things like this. So first inch of the tape measure, do you measure from that? Some people do, some people don't. Some people say...
So unless you've dropped this 100 times and damaged the tip, it is actually got a little bit of movement in there that's calibrated. So when you're measuring inside something, you push this against whatever you're on and you measure and it's accurate. And then when you hook it on something and pull, it is also accurate. So, but if the tip of your tape measure is damaged, what I like to do, and you'll want to avoid this, I call it the 10-inch monster, where you go to the number 10, and that's a new 0, and you can line up from the 10 mark and measure out and measure whatever you want, but don't forget that you're measuring from 10.
Yeah.
So remember that.
Yeah.
But better long than short, I suppose. Cut twice, measure once, that's how it goes.
Yeah. All right, what you got next?
All right, this is another tool that I use quite a lot. It's a speed square. This is a great tool. A lot of carpenters carry these in their tool pouches. You can just stick it in the pouch, and it's great.
What would I use that for at home?
Primarily, I use it to cut a perfect 45 or a perfect 90 when you're cutting on a board. And I'll show you that in just a second. It's got a lot of markings on here. That's for cutting hips and valleys and for cutting angles on boards for roofing, amongst other things, but it's meant for framing. Unless you're building a house, you probably don't need to know how to use this. If you want to learn how, there's plenty of information out there on YouTube and the internet on how to use a speed square for doing framing cuts and calculating angles, but it will do angles for you. Teed off portion on there, a lip. That goes against your board, and now you've got a perfect 90 that you can mark on. One of the other cool things that I really like about this is you can take your saw. Your saw will ride against there, and you'll be able to cut a perfectly square board. Speaking of marking and making lines and figuring out how to cut things, If you buy a sheet of plywood or a piece of sheetrock or drywall and you need to have a really long line, a chalk line is indispensable. So what a chalk line is it's basically a cotton string. It's like kite string. Chalk line has a little reservoir that you just fill with powdered chalk. It comes in all kinds of different colors. I like green because it's very visible, but there's bright red, there's blue, there's orange, I mean every color you want. And you measure out on a board in the 2 spots where you want to, and then you draw the string between your 2 marks. You hold it tight and you just lift it up and drop it, and it makes a snap, and it will make a perfect line every time.
And if you're working with children, they will have hours of fun playing with that while you're doing other things too.
They're fun, they're great, and it washes off with water, so
Yeah.
and if it gets on your clothes and stuff, don't worry about it.
Yep.
All right, and then we've got the level. The one you're holding is called a torpedo level. They come in various length sizes. Some of them have rounded edges. This is just a standard 2-foot level. I've got several more. I've got a 4 and a 6-foot level that I use for various items. And we'll explain kind of where we go with each one of these. The neat thing about the torpedo level is they almost always have a magnetic strip on them, so you can stick them to anything metal you're working on. And there you go. And they're great for measuring in small confined areas where you need to get something true or level, either vertically. This one will do a 45 and tell you if it's true. That only works if the other 2 surfaces are level as well. So
check the other 2 first, then check that.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're building something with a 45, you know, the other angles need to be there, but it really depends on what you're building. So again, not into the weeds here. Nice small level to get into a small tight space where you need to get an object level or vertically level. Plumb would be the word. The 2-foot level, this is great for doing like door sills. This is what I used on the toilet video to level the toilet, and it's, you know, again, great for vertical or horizontal. See, this is called what's known as a spirit level, because you see the green liquid in there is the spirit, and you want to get, you see the bubble, so you want to have the bubble between the lines. Another feature the level has is it's got a little peekaboo window, so when you're looking straight down at it, you can see if you're level. You don't have to try to get your head down against the floor. You can look straight down and see. This one has a gradient on it, or a tape measure, so you can get some rough calculations, especially if you're laying stuff out down on the floor. It's good for that. And the last is a square. This is also known as a framing square or a carpenter's square. You'll use this for marking out on sheet goods, large flat surfaces that you need to do angles on. This is also the tool you would use to mark out a staircase. But anyway, this is numbered. It's got tape measure markings on it, a gradient, so you can measure left and right. This is 1.5 inches, and this is 2 inches. So if you need to do some quick lines or widths or a 2x4 width, it's easy to mark.
And I just used this square recently while cutting out fabric for masks because it's longer than any of the acrylic rulers that I own.
Yeah, it's a 2-foot.
It's very handy to make sure that they were rectangular.
Yeah, it's 2 feet in this direction and 16 inches in this direction. So it also makes, like, for measuring out a stud wall, you just lay it out and end to end. It's great.
All right.
All right, so
done with measurements.
Done with measurement.
Moving on.
I'm going to give you some of the common hand tools now. So
hand tools. These are the ones that a lot of you will be a little bit more familiar with.
Yeah. So you've all seen screwdrivers. We've got the flat standard screwdriver, and we've got Phillips. So I like an open loose grip in the palm like this, and then you can get in there. Sometimes I'll use one hand on the center, the metal portion, and then you can twist so you can kind of guide the screwdriver and hold force on it where it doesn't fall and flop all over. You can keep it in place and then just keep turning.
Okay.
These actually are made to hold an open end wrench. I think it's 3/4. So if you have a really tight screw you can put on there, put the wrench on it and you can give it a little twist. So now you have a little bit of extra leverage. So if you really have a stuck screw, you can do that. Another common tool that everybody has probably seen is the hammer wrench. No, I'm just kidding. This is a crescent wrench. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people use this as a hammer, though. I just quick grab it and pound it in. Some joker out there actually made a hammer wrench. It's got a hammer head on this. It's ridiculous, but I'm getting away. Crescent Wrench, it is an adjustable wrench. It's very versatile. It's great for plumbing because most plumbing stuff doesn't get super tight. But it's great for loosening nuts and bolts. It's got a little wheel here that opens and closes the jaws, and you can set it to whatever size you need and move on. So the danger is, though, is that you don't get a tight lock on your nut or bolts, and then it's floppy, and so every time you put force on it, you're rounding over the shoulder of the bolt, and it deforms it, and then you can't get a good grip on it. And then you need a vice grip, which we got here. These come again in different sizes, shapes, and forms. This one's a quick release one. Some of them have a little trigger thing that unlocks it, but you set it to the size of whatever you're gonna put it on, and then you squeeze extra hard and it locks it in place and it will stay there. That is great for getting onto those bolts that you rounded off with your crescent wrench, and then you just pull. Now I squeezed that one pretty hard, so you might need 2 hands.
Yep, all right.
There you go. But you adjust the little knurled knob at the end to get the size you need. It's got, the teeth on these are very destructive. They're very sharp. So whatever you clamp on there, if it's a softer metal, it will deform it, it will crush it, it will mark it. So, you know, this is a tool of destruction when something has failed and you're ready to remove it. So we've got a couple different kinds of pliers, standard pliers and a needle nose. Needle nose pliers, I use those primarily for electrical wiring work. They're great for turning the curl in the wire, fixing broken jewelry. There's a wire cutter on here that will snip solid wire. The slip joint actually has a cutter on it too. It doesn't work all that well for wire, but it's great for cutting coat hangers. So if you're ever locked out of your car and cut a coat hanger off, having one of these in your pocket's great. These are channel locks, and these can get quite large, are meant for getting large caps open, gripping pipes, opening plumbing. Like if you need to access your drain for a clean out, that would be a great tool for that.
Is this how you use them, with one hand underneath the sink? Where you
Yeah, about that. You'll get them adjusted to whatever size you need, and then just opening, open and close. So you got one finger inside, so you can kind of flip them around. And
if it's bigger than your hand span, then you just got to figure out both hands being in there.
Yeah, this is a very large channel locks. They come in all sizes. Get one that fits your hand for the purpose that you're going to use it for.
All right.
But this is probably twice the size of the one that everybody else has. My other one is just
Chris sized.
Yeah, it's Chris size. And then lastly, I have a wiring tool. So there are multiple different tools in there. It is primarily a wire stripper. It's got a cutter in there, and the little circles and stuff up here are for crimping wire terminals. This one I use for automotive work because I used to be a mechanic back in the day, but you can crimp on any kind of crimped fitting or terminal, like the little stab-on wires. It'll cut threaded rod, which is something that, or a bolt cutter rather, that's what these gradients here are. So if you need to cut off a bolt for like a light fixture, you would put your bolt in there and then you give it a good squeeze and it'll cut it off. We've covered hammers and fastener removal. We've covered measurement and layout. We've covered some pliers and simple hand tools. You guys saw me using a caulking gun. The caulking gun, these come in all different sizes. You get the cheapy one, they're literally like $2. This one is a little bit more expensive. Has a few features that I really like. That when you cut your tapered end on the nozzle, you got to run the little pokey thing or a nail in there to pop that foil seal, or you can't get the caulking to come out. So some of them will have a little hole in here, and if you squeeze it, you can see there's actually a blade in it. But a lot of them do. So you can stick the nose of your caulk tube in there, squeeze a handle, it'll cut it off, turn it around and poke it, and you tap here. That's your little depressor for moving the slide. Pull it all the way back, slide the caulk tube in, lay it down, push that home until it stops, and then you're ready to caulk. And you just squeeze to do so, and when you're done applying your sealant, push this again to relieve any pressure that's on there so it doesn't keep pouring out of the front.
And you'll notice that the first couple times that you forget to push that, it happens to all of us.
Yep.
Makes a mess, but you can always clean it up.
Yep. We go on to utility knives. This particular one I really like. This holds you extra blades. This one actually has a quick release too. You open the blade out all the way, press the yellow button, and out it comes.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's very quick. This one also has another cool feature. It has a wire stripper. So if you're wiring, you can go and give it a little tug, and it will clean off the insulation off your wiring for if you're going to wire like a ceiling fan or something like that. It's a great, quick way to strip a wire. Then you don't have to run out and look for your wire stripper. You've got one in your pocket. Right? Everybody's also seen one of these. There are a variety of different staples for them. A lot of people, I think, tend to pick too large of a staple. So depending on what material you're putting the staples into, 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8, probably no bigger than that, because if you're just putting up fabric or stapling, plastic up, something like that, you don't need anything bigger than that. The heavier duty ones, like if you really are putting something heavy in, then you can get that. But not all of these are created the same, and a lot of them are going to have trouble driving the staple, especially if they're going through a hard material first. This uses Arrow T50 staples, and that's the type of staple. And when you want to use it, you put it tight against there and then pull it in. So that way you get a nice tight staple all the way down. If you're off or sideways or not tight, your staple's not going to sink in. Leverage is really the key to that. And you can always take your tack hammer and go back and tap your staple down if you needed to get flush.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right, and then everybody should have a putty knife in their house. Putty knives are great tools. I use them for everything. Obviously, you'll use them to apply putty or spackle on your wall if you're getting ready to paint and you want to fill all the nail holes. I'm going to go through these a little bit more detail when I get to my wall repair section. I like a nice flexible one because that really lets you get in there and smooth down whatever putty or material you're putting on. They make a very rigid one too. There's, of course, things that you'll want to use those for as well. I also use these for removing trim. So if you need to take baseboard trim off, a lot of people will grab their pry bar and they go try and pry it off, and then the next thing you know, you just punched a hole through your drywall trying to pry your trim off because you were
putting a lot of pressure in a small space.
Yep. But if you want to, you slide this in behind your baseboard and then pry against it, and now it can't punch through.
Yep.
It's great. All right, so we're going to move down into some of the power tools and some of the tools used for cutting. You'll want to use personal protective equipment. These are my ear tunes. They Bluetooth connect, so that's kind of awesome. You can continue to listen.
Ones.
I know, you can listen to my podcast or my music while I'm working. But generally speaking, just any sort of over-the-ear protection to get those high decibel noises out, especially from saws. Circular saws are one of the worst saws for your hearing. Very attractive. Eye protection is also very critical. Most power saws will throw things at your face. All right, so we've got several power tools here. I have the very large electric corded drill. This is actually a hammer drill, so I use this for drilling in concrete. This is also what I would use if I was going to make a batch of concrete or mud when I put the big paddle on. It's got the side handle you can put on. This drill has a lot of torque. This is the drill that breaks your wrist when you're not paying attention. So 2 hands and pay attention to what you're doing. It also has a wind up and a slow down. It doesn't start and stop instantly like an electric cordless. So that's probably not the one you're going to use to hang drywall. That's the one that you're using for drilling big holes or drilling a lot of holes in a lot of repetition. And then we have your standard cordless. This one's mine.
This one's mine. Because I thought for years I didn't know how to use a drill. It turned out it was just way oversized for myself. It was too big for my hand, too big for my grip. I wasn't able to hold it for long periods of time, especially doing any work above my head. So one year, Santa gave me my own drill, and I discovered rather rapidly that I could drill. I had been able to drill the whole time. I was just using the wrong size tool for who I am.
All right, we're going to do a really quick demo because a lot of people have trouble putting in a screw. So there's a couple features I want to show. I like a magnetic extension. It just gives you an extra 2 inches of extension, and when you put a screw on, it stays there, and so you can kind of get things lined up and then screw. I usually like to hold the head of the screw so that everything stays in place. But as you're getting things ready, especially going up over your head, you can get things started. So the thing that most people do wrong when they go to use a screw gun to put screws in is they get it all cockeyed with the head of the screw, and so then they're not going in straight. They're at an angle, and that's what causes it to strip out and to not go in properly. So when you put it in, you want everything, all your force, to be in a singular direction. All right, and then one feature I want to point out with Theresa's is she has an extension as well, but hers actually has like a cheater cuff. It slides forward over the screw, and now you don't have to hold onto the screw. You can just place it, get it where you want to, slide the cuff down, and drive your screw in. So remember, straight line all the way through. The line of force should be in one singular direction, the drill pointing straight down in line with your screw. For loading and unloading your bits, the chuck, you can hand twist it to get it done. I'm usually in a hurry, so if I want to take the bit out, I put it in reverse, I grab the chuck and pull the trigger, comes right out. Put the new bit in, put the drill in forward, pull the trigger, and it goes in. Now, most of these are keyed, they're hexagonal, and you've got the 3 little teeth. Got to make sure they're lined up on the flat. If they're on the angle, your bit's going to pop loose while you're in the middle of putting a screw in, and it's going to be frustrating. So make sure it's lined up correctly. You can always give it a half twist, loosen it, and line it up and pull the trigger again. You're locked in, ready to go. All right. And a couple quick tools that other people might have. Jig saw. Yours probably won't be cordless, but a lot of people have a corded one. This is one of the tools that people cut their fingers with because you're holding onto a piece and then you come through and you don't see where the blade is on the underside and you nick your finger. So always operate with hands in clear position, and don't be afraid to get a couple of these little clamps. They're cheap. They're usually like 15 bucks. And grab a couple of these. They quick clamp and they'll hold it down to a table or a surface so that your piece won't move around while you're cutting it. And then again, eye protection, ear protection, and just take your time and don't be in a rush. That helps keep people safe. The other tool that is one of the most problematic is the circular saw. People like to expose the blade all the time, and again, cut fingers. Sometimes this thing sticks, so pay attention when you're swinging it around. If you swing it away from your body and down, all of a sudden it caught your hip and went right into your fabric, cuts across your leg. So your guard has to be in good condition and working. When you're cutting, make sure that your blade depth is just through the material. It shouldn't be bottomed out in there. I like to have it about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch through the material. That way you get a clean cut, but you don't have excess blade that you're having to force through the material, creating friction, making a harder cut. And it's also safer. So that's our intro to hand tools and some power tools. If you've got a tool specifically that you're going to use or have used and it frustrated you and you want some pointers or tips, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell so that you can be notified of our next videos coming out. And
like us on Facebook at Honest Home Inspection. And make sure that you keep up with the conversation there too, where we will discuss upcoming episodes and ask our subscribers there what more they want to see.
Yeah. So, and don't forget to tell your friends and family, share our videos.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know how to do everything. And if there's something you specifically want to see, again, put it in the comments below or hit us on Facebook. We are Honest Home Inspection, and we are at home with Honest Home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wired for sound, and
we're good at that.
Yeah, we are.